Hey everyone, just got back from the final FLW Super tournament of the year on Lake Erie out of Sandusky Bay. We ended up doing okay. We finished 63rd, got a good check, finished 11th in points for the year after losing a tiebreaker for 10th. My goal going into the tournament was obviously to make the championship, but I wanted to move up in the AOY points, and I was ninth going into it, so I dropped a place or two. But from a point standpoint, we're all really tight, packed in pretty tightly in that range. So it's not a huge issue considering we've got a 2-year average to make it up to the BPT tour. But man, this was an event that it'll push you to your limits. Going out of Sandusky Bay, I think everyone in the field realizes that the best quality smallmouth fishing was in St. Clair. And to get to St. Clair, you got about a 55-mile run straight across Lake Erie, and then you've got about a 25-mile run through the Detroit River, which sounds all, like pleasant riding, but the Detroit River can be really rough in itself. It's got a huge amount of current that flows from north to south. If you get a south wind, it can just build the waves up. And then you throw in all the pleasure boaters, all the ocean liners, and it can get really rough. There's one stretch they call the Miracle Mile, just south of Detroit, where the river gets pinched down and it's seawalls on both sides, and the waves from the boat traffic just ricochet back and forth. So there's no way to run it well. It's really rough. It's one of the most treacherous areas that I think I've ever run through. That is just always treacherous. It's never fun. And then once you get through the Detroit River, you enter St. Clair, and St. Clair in itself is roughly 30 miles long. So you can be doing well over a 100-mile round trip, 100 miles one way to fish this tournament if you wanted to go up to Lake Erie or Lake St. Clair. And in this case, what that does is that really spreads you out in practice. I think there's definitely a fishable population of fish around the islands out of Sandusky Bay. You can go east towards Vermilion, you can go west. There's shoals kind of all throughout that area of Lake Erie, but it's such an immense body of water, and it's such a tough body of water to get around on that it's really hard to cover water. And if you wanted to have some sort of backup plan fishing largemouth, that really just kind of spreads you out even thinner. And they did give us an extra day of practice, which was nice from a standpoint of being able to see more, but it was it just is tough on the equipment, tough on the mind, tough on the body. So personally, I would prefer to stay with 3 practice days, but in this case, it wasn't a bad thing. So my my approach going in was I wanted to fish St. Clair. I wanted to see some of the islands out in front of Sandusky, and then I wanted to spend at least half a day looking for largemouth in case the wind blew or it just was too rough to get to some of the stuff I wanted to fish. I knew really to make the championship, I felt like I was probably locked in even if I didn't weigh a fish in the event, but I knew if I caught one fish or a limit of fish that I would be guaranteed to make the championship, which is another minimum $10,000 check. You get the fish for several $100,000, small field, and it's going to be on Sturgeon Bay, which is a fishery that I love to fish. I can't say I have much experience in the end of August. Most of my experience is all in May, which is when the majority of the tournaments are out on Sturgeon Bay. But I wanted to make it there. It's a couple hours from my home. It's just nice to have another event that's really close and on familiar body of water. So I spent a half day looking for largemouth. Had some decent success. I didn't think that it would compete with the smallmouth, but I definitely thought you could potentially cash a check. And then I spent 2 days up on Lake St. Clair, and then I spent about a day and a half down around Sandusky, around the islands. And I really had a tough day on St. Clair. I did find one area that I felt like I could catch some 2.5-pound class fish, but that's not really what you're making the 100-mile trip for. I had, in the day and a half in the islands around Sandusky, I caught 2 smallmouth. It was terrible. And then the last day on St. Clair, I felt like, I found some fish that definitely could produce 17 plus pound bags if you could have 3 or 4 hours fishing. So the first day of the tournament, we had really strong northeast winds, and I didn't want to make the run. I was an early flight. I knew if I made the run, you'd be looking at least 3 hours of travel time each way, which would leave me with roughly 2 hours of fishing, and that would be pushing it. So I decided to check my largemouth stuff and see how good that was. And I ended up catching 14 and a half pounds, which was decent. I was in the 50s after the first day, and it set me up pretty decent. The second day, they were talking about the wind line down a little bit, and I had a longer day, so I made the run to St. Clair. And I got up there, and within the first few minutes, I caught a 3 3/4 pounder, and I was like, here we go. We're going to have a good day. And it got tough from that standpoint. I had probably 6 or 7 more keepers, and they all were 14 and a half inchers. It just was really tough to get a better quality bite. And at the end of the day, I hit one little isolated spot on the way back to the Detroit River mouth, and I was able to cull up with a 3.5 pounder, and that gave me 12 and a half pounds for the day, and I ended up falling a few spots to 63rd. So it was a good tournament. It's not where I wanted to be. I definitely felt like I should have been inside that top 50 cut. If I could have had one more 3-pound class fish, I would have been well inside the top 50. I didn't even need that. I needed a 2 1/4 pounder. I think I was 10 ounces out of the top 50 cut, which on St. Clair, when you've got a bunch of 14 and a half inchers that weigh 1.5 pounds or 1.75 pounds, it's really easy to pick up a 1/2 pound or 3/4 pound. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't get the bites. It seemed like everybody who was up there struggled to get bites. I know there were some guys that did really well, but it was one of those things. The area I was in, there were probably 10 of us, and it was not easy. I mean, we all kind of were struggling to get bites. But having said that, it was a good event. I kept it pretty simple. I had only a few rods out each day. In this case, the first day for largemouth, I caught everything on a Dirty Jigs Luke Clausen compact pitching jig, and then on the back end, I've got a Berkeley Max Scent creature craw, and this is the pond bug color with a green pumpkin color creature craw. It really seemed like black and blue and green pumpkin variations were the deal. If I switched just to green pumpkin, I didn't get as many bites, and if I was just on like a black and blue, I didn't get as many bites. But when I mixed them, it seemed like I was getting more bites. In this case, this is a MHX rod that I built myself. It's an HNMB 874. So it's a 4-power. It's a great all-around rod. It's a good pitching rod, but like a really good casting rod for jigs. In this case, and then this is an ALF Abu Garcia Revo. Can't complain. This reel is great. Again, it's left-handed. I love having a left-handed reel anytime I'm potentially pitching. And in this case, I was fishing a lot of rock that wasn't too far away. I wasn't making full casts, so it was a lot of underhand pitches. So that was the first day. Everything I weighed was on that. Man, they were eating it good. The one thing that was funny with this is a lot of times they were picking it up and then they would drop it. So you'll see in the video, a lot of times I'll go to set the hook and I'll stop. And then if I gave it one quick pop or 2 pops, they would hit it again, and that's when they would really eat it. So I think the first time around, they would eat the creature craw, grab it by the tail, and start swimming with it, and they would drop it. But I think that's where the max scent really helped. Every time they would pick it back up, like then they would have it good at that point. So, I think it was one of those things where they were really pressured fish, the largemouth as well. They had all hook marks in their mouth. And I think they were testing. I think they'd pick it up by the tails, and then they'd go, yeah, I like that. And next thing, they'd drop it, and then you'd pop it once or twice, and they'd come back and eat it. And then up on St. Clair, it was pretty basic. I mean, this is what everyone's throwing right now. This is the Max Scent Flatworm by Berkeley. I had probably 5 or 6 different colors that were open. I had bags open. I would just grab. It didn't really seem to matter. Goby was really a good color, and so was the cinnamon blue. but I caught them on green pumpkin. I caught them on black. It's just the flatworm. I don't know what. The smallmouth love it. It's candy. If you can get yourself some, I would highly recommend it, because it works great. But so I've got some video here for you. Again, I've been having camera troubles, and I got the largemouth fishing. I think I only missed one catch, but I will say on day 2, anytime you're dealing with rough water, you're bouncing around, the camera shuts off a lot. So I think I've got like 1 or 2 fish catches, unfortunately. But it's pretty basic. It really was pretty standard drop shot fishing. But you know what? That's what we got, and we're going to be moving on to Sturgeon Bay here in a week, and we'll hopefully have a really good video for you on that one. So please share, like, and subscribe. Thanks. Giant, but another good one. Decent one. Got a terrible hook set on. But that dirty jig is all the way through the mouth. Just missed my 5th fish. It's a nice 3-pound class one, largemouth. It has been a grind, an absolute grind today. The Dirty Jigs compact pitching jig, designed by my buddy Luke Clarkson, and a Berkeley Max Scent Creature Hog. Have accounted for all of my fish today. I don't know, there is definitely something to that Max Scent. Just let it soak and it's like they come find it. Now we get to try to upgrade.